pushed down and a gun held to her head. Armed robbers target a woman in her backyard with her daughter just steps away.
Attempted home invasion caught on camera, but the unsuspecting homeowner winds up pulling a gun on his attackers.
This morning, a smoke shop on Chicago's northwest side is burglarized overnight.
In a city known for welcoming all, the situation in Chicago takes a dramatic turn. Migrants now heavily armed and committing terrifying home invasions left, right, and center, putting the lives of the city's residents at great risk.
2 days in a row, groups of Venezuelan migrants were charged with burglaries in DuPage County.
This bold step challenges the Windy City's promise of shelter. With laws that guarantee shelter for those in need, the city faces a real test, managing this surge without turning its back on its citizens. It's a moment that asks, what happens when the Windy City meets a migrant crime nightmare? Stick around as we delve deeper into Chicago's migrant crime crisis. Disturbing burglaries.
In a 2.5-minute montage, Chicago police pieced together clip after clip showing a group of men armed with and even a long knife.
In recent months, Chicago has been grappling with a troubling surge in burglary incidents. This wave of criminal activity isn't just a series of isolated events. It's become a concerning pattern that seems to grow more complex by the day. The city now finds itself at a crucial juncture, seeking ways to combat this rise in burglaries and migrant crimes in general.
Gangs from South America are breaking into multi-million-dollar homes across the country.
Among the incidents are bold home invasions and daring burglaries, with criminals employing increasingly sophisticated and drastic methods to carry out their deeds. Stick around as we dive deeper into migrant criminal and gang activity in just a moment.
As many as 4 migrants are now facing criminal charges. They're accused of threatening, even hitting Chicago police officers in the last 2 days.
Chicago police officers are dealing with an increasingly tense situation, taking 2 alleged offenders into custody, police sources identifying the offenders as migrants.
Confrontations between suspects and law enforcement have added another layer of concern. These attacks are not just physical altercations, but are emblematic of the broader struggle against crime in the city. However, this narrative isn't only about crime statistics or police reports, it's about the impact on everyday Chicagoans, whose sense of security and well-being is being eroded.
They broke through the glass, they came in and went straight to the registers. We're looking for any cash. Yeah, that's been like their tactic.
Stories of unexpected break-ins and the fear of becoming the next victim have become all too common, stirring debates about the city's leadership and not least Mayor Brandon Johnson. Migrant crimes.
At least 5 people involved, including one person smashing the window while another jumps inside to steal the cash drawer.
In a shocking and rapid series of events, the residents of Chicago are finding themselves in the midst of increasing criminal activities, including heists and violence that threaten their safety.
A migrant from Venezuela is facing charges accused of attacking and women.
Imagine this scenario. Numerous migrants just arrived from Texas are entering Chicago with the intention of committing crimes. These individuals quickly become targets for recruitment by local gangs looking to bolster their ranks for their criminal schemes. Chicago is facing a significant challenge from this surge of newcomers who are swiftly being taught the tricks of the theft trade by established criminals within the city.
A pair of Venezuelan migrants has been charged with stealing almost $3,000 in merchandise from the Oak Brook Mall. Police arrested Luis Mendez Gomez and Frank Montes Davila.
And developing tonight, retail thieves strike again. Oak Brook police releasing new videos from a double hit earlier this month.
Picture migrants, unfamiliar with the local geography, now orchestrating thefts in upscale shopping areas under the tutelage of seasoned lawbreakers. With the arrest of 47 migrants in a matter of weeks, the city is struggling to protect its citizens. The situation is reminiscent of a crime film, with organized crime rings providing detailed guidance on executing thefts, including logistics and tips for evasion, only for these individuals to often be caught and then released, exposing gaps in the legal system.
Now to an armed robbery in Chicago and a manager held at
The suspect's responsible for holding up a dozen more people.
However, the narrative takes a complex turn, as not all the newcomers are engaged in petty theft. Some are involved in more intricate criminal endeavors, such as a busted operation for creating fraudulent IDs linked to shoplifting schemes by the Cook County Sheriff's Office.
Migrants looking for fast cash to get a job can wind up as pawns in a criminal operation.
Many of them caught stealing in order to pay for fake IDs to gain employment.
Moreover, a portion of these migrants have histories that include affiliations with gangs and international criminal organizations, presenting a greater threat with their involvement in serious crimes ranging from human trafficking to narcotics distribution.
They'd made 25 arrests, recovering illegal narcotics, guns, and 9 cars.
The situation escalated when a Venezuelan migrant suspected of cartel connections was implicated in a recent drive-by further jeopardizing the safety and daily lives of Chicago's inhabitants.
2 people, including the teenager, are dead and 7 others hurt.
Understandably, the community is outraged, directing their frustration at local and national leaders, including Mayor Brandon Johnson and President Joe Biden, blaming them and the criminal elements among the migrants for the increasing unrest. The community's response includes significant anti-migrant protests, reflecting the city's tense atmosphere and the complex challenges it faces. Public outrage.
Nobody asked us, nobody told us. We have more than few thousand people who signed a signature here who said no. We said no.
The atmosphere in Chicago is intensifying for a significant reason. Citizens are openly expressing their displeasure, pointing fingers at Mayor Brandon Johnson and the Biden administration. Their frustration stems from a belief that migrants are being given precedence, with funds that many feel should instead support the city's essential public services.
Critics accuse the city of prioritizing migrants over citizens.
Moreover, the community's sense of security, vital for any neighborhood's well-being, has become a pressing concern. A growing number of Chicago residents report feeling increasingly unsafe, attributing this unease to the influx of migrants, particularly noting the arrival of numerous men, some with criminal records. According to these residents, this influx threatens the safety of the local populace.
When do citizens of the United States of America come first?
The debate over fiscal management, specifically the allocation and perceived misallocation of tax revenue, further fuels public dissatisfaction. There's a widespread feeling among Chicagoans that their tax dollars are being diverted from their intended uses, leading to calls for a reassessment of priorities and decision-making at the city's helm.
These South and West Side homeowners are angry. They believe the city has overextended itself and should be putting the tens of millions of dollars earmarked for migrants into Chicago's most vulnerable neighborhoods.
But the South Side has been under-resourced, underfunded for years, for decades. We have schools that need to be reopened.
The topic of education, critical to the prosperity of any community, also takes center stage in these discussions. The repurposing of schools to accommodate migrants has drawn significant backlash, with many arguing that schools' primary role should be to educate the city's youth rather than serve as makeshift accommodations.
Move over, kids. Migrants are taking over your neighborhood football field in Chicago in favor of a new shelter for illegal immigrants, and residents are outraged.
The controversy extends even to the suburbs, where the idea of migrants moving into residential areas has triggered a not-in-my-backyard response from some residents. This has led to pointed questions about whether local officials would welcome such developments in their own neighborhoods.
How about this? Give them all these politicians' addresses and put them in their backyards, in their basements, in their houses.
As more migrants arrive in Chicago by bus, the city confronts a looming question. Why is this happening? And what will it mean for the future of one of America's flagship cities? Arrival of migrants.
State leaders say they've been told to expect up to 25 buses of migrants each day.
Picture this, a line of buses, each filled to capacity, rolling into Chicago. This scene isn't lifted from a movie script. It's happening in real life.
9 more buses carrying people arrived in Chicago today. That is the most in one day ever.
Chicago is now the central point of a migrant surge that's capturing nationwide attention. But who are these arrivals? Predominantly men. Their presence is raising both interest and concern. Among them, a significant portion has been identified with criminal histories, adding a layer of complexity to the situation and fueling intense discussions.
7 buses of migrants will arrive in Chicago today. This follows the at least 7 coach buses full of migrants that arrived in Chicago yesterday. In fact, just a few minutes ago, another coach bus full of migrants pulled up right beside us.
What draws these migrants to Chicago? Its status as a sanctuary city is a magnet, offering promises of protection and support. However, as the number of arrivals climbs, the city's welcoming stance is under the microscope, sparking debates on the impact on local resources, community safety, and overall welfare.
Joe Biden is responsible for the largest amount of illegal immigration in the history of the United States, and there are deadly consequences because of that.
There's only one reason why this is happening, and that's because Joe Biden has eliminated
all of the 4 policies that Donald Trump put in place that led to the lowest illegal border crossings in 40 years.
The strategy of sending migrants to Chicago, a tactic by Texas Governor Abbott, is seen as a direct challenge to the federal approach to immigration. Regardless of the political motivations, the reality on the ground is clear. Chicago faces an unprecedented challenge that is testing its resilience, capacity, and commitment.
New numbers in today on how much Chicago has spent on the migrant crisis. In total, nearly $300 million has been spent since October 2022.
The tension is evident among the local population, with some considering moving away due to the growing strain on housing, public services, and safety. At this pivotal moment, Chicago is grappling with how to uphold its sanctuary city principles while navigating the complexities of this intense migration debate.
A breaking news update: more migrants are arriving in Chicago right now.
As the city continues to welcome new buses of migrants, it stands at a crossroads, reflecting on its future path. What will this mean for a city known for its diversity and strength? Housing challenges.
Another migrant shelter in Chicago closes its doors.
Tonight, thousands of migrants spending what could be their final weeks in shelters across Chicago.
Chicago, bustling and densely populated, now grapples with an unprecedented housing crisis, propelled by a relentless stream of migrants seeking a new start in the Windy City. The situation is dire. There simply isn't enough room to house everyone. Securing accommodation for these newcomers has become a Herculean task, marked by exorbitant costs, complex logistics, and visible strain on city resources. As the chill of winter takes hold, a distressing tableau emerges more frequently. Migrants sheltering in flimsy tents, battling the cold. Police stations, never intended for such use, are now packed shelters. Schools, traditionally beacons of learning, are repurposed as emergency accommodations, sparking intense discussions about priorities and the impact on Chicago's educational system. The spread of tents across sidewalks and parks is a stark symbol of the crisis. These temporary abodes reflect not just a struggle for shelter, but a city stretched to its limits. For residents, these encampments underscore rising safety concerns and a declining standard of living. The burning question now is how Chicago will tackle this growing housing dilemma. With every nook and cranny filled and shelters beyond capacity, the city searches for answers in the face of severe challenges. As Chicago navigates this critical housing shortage, it does so under national scrutiny. How the Windy City will weather this storm remains to be seen, but it's clear that a daunting path lies ahead. Government response. In the midst of the challenges facing Chicago, the focus turns to the leaders, Mayor Brandon Johnson and the Biden administration, as the city confronts a substantial migrant influx placing government actions under the microscope. Opinions on their handling of the situation vary as widely as the city's array of pizzas. Firstly, Mayor Johnson is in the hot seat. With increasing pressure, his leadership and tactics are being rigorously analyzed. Detractors criticize his approach as indecisive and overly lenient, suggesting misaligned priorities. On the flip side, his advocates see him as tackling a complex issue with a mix of empathy and practicality. The Biden administration, caught in a wider debate over immigration policies, faces questions about its impact on locales like Chicago. Their strategy, blending support with initiatives to address underlying causes, often appears disconnected from Chicago's immediate hardships. Governor Abbott of Texas emerges as a provocateur in this scenario. His decision to send migrants to sanctuary cities has intensified the situation, forcing local and federal leaders to confront the consequences head-on. Amid this turmoil, the debate over potential solutions, stricter border enforcement, enhanced support systems, grows. Each proposition sparks more discourse, complicating the quest for resolutions. As Chicago navigates these troubled waters, the efficacy of the government's actions is under the lens. Will the leadership provide the relief the city needs, or will the challenges mount, pushing Chicago to its limits? This story is evolving, and as strategies are devised, the world watches. The direction Chicago takes and the impact of today's decisions will undoubtedly shape the city's future. With high stakes and critical decisions ahead, the question looms: can Chicago overcome this adversity, or will the pressures prove too great? The future will tell, but it's evident that current choices will carve out Chicago's path forward. National impact. As Chicago grapples with a marked surge in migrants, the effects spread far and wide, highlighting a nationwide issue that is felt from the bustling streets of New York City to the far reaches of the country. This unfolding crisis is not just a local concern. It's prompting a nationwide introspection on policies, humanity, and the very principles that underpin American society. New York City finds itself in a similar situation as Chicago, with shelters at capacity, resources stretched to the limit, and public debate intensifying. This shared challenge has catapulted the issue into the center of national discourse, signaling a moment of collective reckoning. The situation begs the question, what are the wider implications for the United States? It exposes a complex web of issues from immigration policies and the distribution of responsibilities between the federal government and local jurisdictions to the capacity of cities to integrate newcomers. It's a litmus test for America's infrastructure resilience, its commitment to foundational values, and its vision for the future. Critics warn that without cohesive strategies and bold actions, this scenario could deeply impact urban centers nationwide. They highlight the potential depletion of resources, the burden on public services, and the threat to societal cohesion as nationwide concerns, risking the country's overall stability and welfare. Former President Donald Trump has voiced strong criticism, blaming the crisis on what he perceives as the shortcomings of the current immigration policies and leadership. He calls for stricter border controls and immigration regulations, framing the issue as a critical juncture for national security and identity. As the country observes and reflects, several pressing questions arise. How will America navigate this challenge? What lessons can be drawn from the experiences of cities like Chicago and New York? And crucially, how will these decisions shape the future of a nation known for its dedication to providing refuge and opportunities? Thus, the migrant crisis goes beyond immediate emergencies to represent a moment of national reflection, a test of resolve, and a significant chapter in the continuing story of America, a story that is being written in real time, across communities and avenues nationwide. Fixing the crisis. In the face of an unprecedented situation, Chicago is confronted with a critical question that hangs heavy in the atmosphere. How can this be resolved? As the city faces an unparalleled wave of migrants, discovering a solution has become as rare and valuable as a treasure yet to be found. A widespread suggestion echoes from the community to the echelons of power: close the borders. This straightforward strategy aims to stem the flow of newcomers, advocated by some as a crucial step to regain control and tackle the crisis more effectively without the burden of ongoing entries. However, doubts linger over its comprehensive effectiveness. The role of financial strategy becomes paramount in such times of need. The undeniable influence of financial resources is being recognized, with discussions around budget reallocation, the enhancement of housing support, and the bolstering of public services. The goal is to recalibrate the city's resources to match the scale of its challenge, ensuring essential services like housing, safety, and stability are accessible to both newcomers and established residents. Looking ahead, the focus broadens to include integration and community strengthening. Efforts such as employment schemes and language training are designed to transform current hurdles into opportunities for communal growth. The hope is to seamlessly integrate migrants into the fabric of society, playing active contributory roles, thus easing tensions and building a more cohesive, robust community. Governor Abbott's stance on tightening immigration policies adds another layer to the conversation. The challenges faced on Chicago's streets highlight the pressing need for comprehensive immigration reform that addresses both the causes and effects of the migrant surge. As Chicago forges a path through this complex landscape, the route is fraught with challenges. Finding effective solutions will require cooperation, creativity, and a commitment to addressing the immediate while laying the foundation for enduring strength. This crisis has tested Chicago's resilience, but also ignited a resolve to overcome. This pivotal moment goes beyond managing a migration spike. It represents an opportunity to rethink the essence of community in the modern age. As Chicago looks to the future, the imperative to act is clear and present. Conclusion. As dusk settles over Chicago, a city at the heart of a national focus due to an extraordinary wave of migrants, this chapter does not signal closure, but rather a critical juncture. The trials faced by the city's streets, its residents, and the very fabric of the community are unparalleled. Yet from within these challenges, stories of resilience, dialogue, and determination rise to the surface. The city's populace, a mosaic of different backgrounds, has voiced concerns, hopes, and critiques. They have scrutinized policies, held their leaders to account, and sought solutions. In these endeavors, the complexity of the road ahead becomes clear, marked not by simplicity or uniformity. At the heart of the matter, issues like safety, the management of resources, and the integration of new arrivals are deeply complex, entwined with broader national policies histories and international realities. Still, Chicago's spirit, defined by its diversity and resolve, shines brightly. This moment has sparked deep reflection on what it means to be a sanctuary city, the balance between compassion and practicality, and visions for the city's future. The actions taken by the government, the responses from the community, and the ongoing discourse highlight the obstacles and opportunities that lie ahead. The effort to devise solutions, strategize, and take action is relentless. The journey forward is long, calling for collective action. One thing is clear: the story of Chicago extends beyond the current crisis of migrant arrivals. It's a narrative about the city's soul, the resilience of its people, and the ongoing effort to forge a community defined by inclusiveness, safety, and the well-being of all its members. As Chicago faces these transformative challenges, its resolve remains unshaken. This era in the city's history is not yet finished, but with every step forward, Chicago is writing a new chapter, one filled with hope, the reality of adversity, and the collective ambition to navigate the intricacies of an ever-changing global scene.